This podcast is produced by Sunnydale Studios.
I don't want just anybody. Let me treat you like somebody. Try to dive on a Rari. It's forever, we ain't stopping.
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to Big Love Energy. We are in episode 10 of season 2. I'm your host, Jesselou. Thanks for joining us. This is the last episode of Big Love Energy for season 2 and for the year. It is that time of year. Thank you so much to everyone who has listened, engaged with us via social media, or admired from afar. It's so much appreciated. It's been an absolute pleasure talking so openly and honestly with you all. We've gone deep, that's for sure. Big Love Energy will be taking an extended break throughout January. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back, so stay tuned to our socials to keep in the loop. But today, I am thrilled to have Steph Pase on the show. Some of you may know Steph as Just Another Mummy blog on Instagram. Steph is also the creator behind the organisation and planner business Steph Pase. So who better to set intentions into the new year than Miss Planner herself, Steph? We also talk about her grieving journey, as well as mental health and all the things that come into play as you go about life as anyone really. But yeah, in specific to Steph, she's an amazing mum, an amazing wife, an amazing businesswoman, and I'm so honoured to have this chat with her. So let's get into it. Welcome, Steph Pase. Thank you for joining us today. I can't believe you're on the show. I've met you in person once.
Thank you so much. Yes, that was so fun. It was so good to meet you. But it's funny. Sometimes I meet people in person that you follow online and you just feel like you've known them forever.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. Absolutely. Because you do.
Yeah, that's how I felt like when I saw you. I was like, oh.
Yeah. And I remember because I followed you online for years, and I always in my head thought that you were based in WA, and I told you that. I was like, oh, this is a long way to travel from WA. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm from Sydney.
Everyone thinks I'm either from, well, usually people think I'm from Queensland or Melbourne. I'm not sure why, but I'm like, no, I'm in the middle. So
it's so funny. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. You're an absolute
thank you for having me.
Superstar of everything. Of organisation, but just, spreading your light online. I've followed you for many years. I love your content because it ranges honestly from everything from fitness to food, family life, organisation, hacks and things like that, but also you're incredibly funny. So yeah, it's just a beautiful page to follow. But for the listeners that have been...
Give me a big head.
No, take it. Honestly, like for the listeners that have been living under a rock, tell us a bit more about yourself. Who is Steph Pase?
So yes, I have a lot of different interests, like you covered. I think growing up, I struggled with that a little bit. You know, like you finish high school and you kind of don't know what to do with yourself. So I went to uni. I did journalism. So I really love to write and stuff, which actually did come in handy, and we did a bit of marketing there as well. And then I went on to what did I do next? I went on to makeup school. So I became a makeup artist, and then I ran my own business.
I love it.
And I did, I did weddings every weekend, which was just lovely. I just loved making people feel like really confident in themselves. And I loved the banter between clients, which was fun. And I met my husband Ryan when we were 17, so we were babies.
Divine.
And, he's a legend. So I met Ryan at 17, and then I worked at a gym for a while I did my makeup business on the weekends to help like save up for our wedding and all the things. You know how crazy it is. And back then, like, it's just nothing as expense wise as it is now. But you know, I think we're like 21.
Babies,
so
yeah.
Yeah, and we went on and I had babies, and then from there I was a bit younger, like all my friends hadn't had babies yet, so I felt very lonely, and I did have postnatal depression, already had anxiety pretty much my whole life, and I just felt like, you know, in the newborn phase, you're stuck in the trenches of it, you're at home, you just feel like you're going crazy, and I was really battling with the postnatal depression. And because I love writing and stuff too, Ryan's like, why don't you because I talked to him about starting a blog, and back then it wasn't like a very big, there wasn't heaps of it around. There was a fair few, but not as much as there is now.
And how long ago would this have been?
This would have been...
What year?
when's when Harper was born? So 2017,
Yeah,
2017.
right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
so a while ago.
Yeah.
Scary. No, 2016. That was
Yep.
it, 2016.
Yep.
Yeah, because Willow was born 2017. So I started the blog and because Ryan was just like, just do it, like who cares? And I'm like, yeah. I have a lot of imposter syndrome, which I still struggle with now. I think it's like this thing I've just always had to try and get out of my brain. And then from there, honestly, the blog kind of just took off. I was just being an idiot most of the time, sharing my anxiety, mental health, sharing this like my journey with fitness, and then organization, because we lived in this little flat, and that's kind of where the organization came in. And then I started Steph Pase Planners, and here we are.
That's insane. That's so cool. And I actually had no idea, because I would have come along maybe like I'd say 2018, 2019, and I had no idea that it was like that was the progression, but it makes sense, because I was like, I remember coming across your page, just another mummy blog, and I was like, that's a cool handle, that's like a cool name. And then
I hate it now.
I did notice there was one time that you were like, geez, I wish I could change it to just Steph Pase, right? But you can't,
because you're a joke.
Oh my gosh, amazing. But I love it. It's endearing. And I do think that that's the thing with you, is that you are very transparent about what goes through your mind and your struggles with your mental health and anxiety. And I just would love, because I feel like that's us all, especially at the moment. Are you able to share a little bit more about your journey on a bit of a deeper level where you haven't felt your best self, and how you sort of got out of that rut? And I know that a big part of that is your physical, like you love, training for your mental health, which I do as well. So would love to chat more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So like with my mental health, I've had anxiety ever since I remember. I was quite not lucky for my family, but lucky for me. Pretty much most of the women in my family have anxiety. So when I started showing those anxious tendencies on a larger scale, like I remember being in kindergarten and I used to come home crying because I was worried about going to year 6. Like it would make me sick with worry. Yeah, and anxiety. And it was just something that luckily mum knew straight away what it was. So, because I know a lot of women, they will message me and like they actually think like they're having a heart attack because of the panic attacks and the anxiety attacks. And it's terrifying. And I don't know how I would have going through that without being able to even just know what it is, or feeling like no one is listening or understanding. Because a lot of these women are coming to me and saying, like, I feel like I'm going to die, and I'm telling my partner or my family, and they just tell me to chill. And it's like, it doesn't work like that.
No. Yeah.
You can't just snap out of it.
Absolutely.
And then and then I think I pretty much tried everything. I went to, I still do therapy when I really need it. But for me, I was very much so, I didn't realize it until I got pregnant with Harper, that for me, I used alcohol to numb my anxiety. I wasn't like in my early years, in my early 20s kind of thing, or teenage years, I wasn't like a daily drinker, but I definitely was a binge drinker. And I didn't realize that's why I did it, because I was always someone who I couldn't have a couple. I had to, go all out, unfortunately. Yep. Oh, and I know it's like, unfortunately, it's quite in the Aussie culture to, drink a lot and stuff like that. But I feel like if you're going through mental health issues, and especially if you're not aware of it, you don't understand how much that exuberates it and how much worse it makes you off. And then I had, my babies, and with both I got postnatal depression really, really bad. And that was definitely like the hardest thing. And I think a lot of mums who get it, like for me, myself, I know Ryan and I wanted both babies so much. Like we wanted nothing more than have our kids. And then I had them, and then I was just so depressed. I didn't want to get up in the morning. I used to get so angry at myself, and I was like, you should be grateful. Like, you wanted this. What are you doing? You're a bad mom. And I think it's like very normal for a lot of us to think like that with postnatal depression and anxiety. But the thing is, it's just like, with anything, you get a cold, you go to the doctor, and like you get help, whether that is therapy or medication. For me, I'm actually on anxiety medication. I've been on it since I was like 21. That's just me personally. Everyone's so different. But as you said, like fitness has always been such a big thing for me. And I think in my early 20s, it was more like to look a certain way. And now it's just like, you would understand this. Now it's literally just to move that anxious energy every day. And then you turn up and be the most patient self, especially mum, like being a more patient mum. But yeah, it has been such a journey, but and I still like it's anxiety. You've got it every day, but there's definitely methods and ways to help with like releasing that anxious energy.
Yeah. Do you drink, because I find as soon as I overdo it with caffeine, do you reduce your coffee intake? Or are you a coffee drinker? Do you drink coffee?
Yeah. So I was sharing this the other day on stories actually, because I went for a little while. I think it was when my dad got really sick just before he passed, I cut it out because I just was like, and it was probably the first time I actually completely cut out alcohol for quite a long time because I cut down before then. But yeah, caffeine and alcohol are just honestly, it really does mess you up. And I just drank a coffee before this podcast, but it's another thing. Like I'm having one a day now, but it's something I'm trying to like cut back on, at least go to decaf because I get shaky and I can't have it past lunch. Otherwise I don't sleep.
Yeah. No, that was one of the biggest things, because I wouldn't say I'm a highly anxious person, but I do get anxiety, and I think I just put myself in situations sometimes where I'm like, wow, you're really like pushing the boundaries. But I I noticed that there's been times that I've gone to record this podcast and I've had 2 coffees in the morning, and I rock up and the producer's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I feel scatty ass, and I've learnt my lesson. So now I literally know, like, I think you go through life thinking, like, I've always been aware of nutrition and whatnot, but just like you think, oh, I'll be right. But then it like really seeing the direct effect of things like caffeine and alcohol, really being more mindful around those practices has made a huge difference with my anxiety for sure. And I just, it's
like, I was going to say, it's like Bart Simpson touching the hot stove. It's like you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And you're like, no, next time I won't do it again. And then you keep doing it. And I feel like for me personally, I don't know if it was like this with you, with like caffeine in certain situations, but it's like with alcohol, and I literally got to a point where I was just so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired.
Yeah.
That I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I don't know if it's also like since you hit 30, like everything's just harder in general. Like you sleep a bit weird and then your neck's out for the week.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's everything. Yeah. I'm nearly 40, Steph. So I really feel it.
How does that, you literally look like you're 32 at like older.
Ruffy says 18, so I'll take that.
Amazing.
But I think the older you get, the more you're like, I'm just got to serve my future self and not have the huge night, and make sure that you get your sleep and reduce that coffee intake. It's all been things I've learned, like definitely in the last 3 years, that I'm like, oh, this all matters. It totally matters, because you just, I was the same as you, a huge binge drinker not growing up, not as a kid, but definitely in my, early 20s, and just that rugby culture, like my ex played rugby, and so we were like, I was always out with the boys, and it was like, I remember I used to, like, when we lived in Perth, I used to, like, we called it like snorkel. We'd have these like Smirnoff Blacks and put the straw in the bottle, and I would scull it, and then I'd black out. And I remember used to go, I'm like, I black out on alcohol. It's like, I don't know why. And it was like purely the amount of consumption that I was doing. And it's just the culture. And then like now I have like 3 champagnes and I like, it's a 3-day hangover. So it's like, you learn your lessons, that's for sure. But I feel like if I would have saved myself a whole lot of pain, if I had have learnt those lessons earlier, I think it takes a while for it to sort of line up. So, but yeah, we live and learn, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
You did touch on just then, and I know it's such a fresh thing, and I want to touch on you losing your dad recently, because we do go deep here on this podcast, and I think you just being so open about your grief journey has helped so many others, and there's been so much strength in that. But I just want to know how you're doing, first and foremost, and and just, for you to share a little bit more on that journey, because it's been so raw, and just so many feels. So how are you doing?
Thank you, my love. It's definitely something like I've never ever experienced anything like this in my life. Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of friends and stuff like that, but never anyone like, in your family. Like I've never lost a close family member or like a best friend or anything like that. So, and I think so at the start of this year, so my dad got diagnosed with lymphoma, not the April that just passed, last April.
Yep.
Of 2021. But I think as a kid, you just, like, I know I'm an adult now, but you always kind of just see your parents as invincible people. Like you just don't think anything, and you don't think it's going to happen to someone you know or love. So when he got diagnosed, we were like, yep, okay, we'll do the chemo, we'll get through it. And Dad and I, growing up, it was a complex kind of relationship. So I've got my brother who's got Down syndrome and autism, so quite severe disabilities. And then my nan, who's my mum's mum, she lived with us before I was born. And then I've also got my mum. But like growing up, having a brother that has disabilities, it is a lot. And unless you have it, you probably don't really understand. But it's a lot. And especially as a kid growing up, I'm a year younger than him. Dad was like his full carer. Okay. And as a kid, when I was really little, we were really close. And then as I got a bit older, I kind of felt like this is how I felt, not what he intentionally did. I kind of felt like put to the side a bit. And we had a lot of, it's just the pressures of having a child with Down syndrome and autism, or disability. And it's a lot. And my nan kind of like raised me and everything. And then when he got sick, it was like, any like, childhood trauma or any situations from the past, it kind of like made me realize like, shit, like, how quick life can go. And it just made me kind of as well see how it would have really been for my dad. He worked really long hours. He'd come home, have to care for his disabled son. And it just made me see things in a new light. And in turn, that honestly helped me move past my childhood trauma or anything that happened. And and this is me looking at the silver lining. He was able to kind of have that closure with me and like apologize for anything that he did or said or whatever. And it was something I really needed to have. And I'm really grateful that we got that, as shit as the situation is. And my mum and I always say, like, unfortunately, it takes the biggest losses to learn the biggest lessons. And it honestly, like, I've learned. So he passed away actually 3 months ago today. It was the 15th of September. Yeah.
Oh.
So, but and it's different every day. But I still remember like thinking he was going to be okay. Yeah. We're getting really probably like the best relationship we've probably ever had since I was a kid. Like we got like close and it was really nice. And I never really thought for a second that he wouldn't make it. Like I was like, he's going to be fine. And then as time went on, he started getting like looking older, looking weaker. Yeah. And then I remember, I think, so Mum knew for a while that it wasn't going too well, but she didn't tell me. I think I found out in April of this year. Yep. So the start of this year, I thought he was going to be fine. And April of this year, she told me like, your dad's probably got a couple of years left, which rocked me to my core. Like I was an absolute mess. And then I think the month after that, they said, no, like he's got months. And that was really, and it's just like, and it's so hard because there's so many things. Like if you're someone who's going through, they call it anticipatory grief, I think. So it's like you're anticipating the grief. Yeah. And it's like literally like grieving, but they're still here. Like you're grieving them while they're alive. And it's something too, like I was saying to you before when we were messaging each other, like grief is such a taboo topic and people just don't talk about it. And it's like this thing people tiptoe around. And I never really realized that until, I was literally going through grief. And as much as I show up as my authentic self online, I obviously do have to guard a lot. So I was going through a lot behind the scenes and sharing little bits, but when I was ready. But it's definitely something that's quite confronting. And I'm very open, but even me sharing that, like it was a lot. So Dad passed in September, and before he passed, I remember, because, I've got Steph Pase planners and the platforms that I'm on and being a mum and all the things. Even trying to keep the plants alive.
Very important.
Yeah. My dad always he's so proud of, he loves Steph, him watching Steph Pase planners grew, made him so proud.
I bet.
But he was always worried. Yeah. He was always worried about how I was burnt out for years and I didn't even realize it. But he always wanted me to slow down. And I think I'm the type of person, I don't know if you're like this, I can't sit down.
Definitely.
I'm always doing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
always doing stuff.
I when people say, how do you have so much energy to do the things you do? And is it setting the wrong precedent that, people are meant to overachieve and all that? And it's for me, I just, having been through my own grief journey, it's just, I don't ever want to take a day for granted. And if I've got the energy while I've got it, then I'm going to use it. And it definitely for spreading the way, love the way that I try and do. So it's that drive to just want to show up every day. But on that topic of, grief being a taboo subject, and I wholeheartedly take my hat off to you with how, transparent you were, because those who go through that grief journey, I remember, when I lost Ben, I would want to talk to anyone about it, because those are ones that closest to you wouldn't know how to handle it, so they would tiptoe around it or just sort of sweep it under the carpet, and I would find myself in the back of a taxi cab having a deep and meaningful with the driver rather than those closest to me, because they didn't know how to handle it. And I think that that's the thing with grief, is that you do want to talk about it. You do want to I think it's really healthy to feel through that time, and it never goes away. The grief does never go away. You just get better at handling it. So I think you opening up the way you did and showing yourself at all levels and each day being different, and still having to show up for your kids and businesses and your plants really just showed how human the whole experience is. So I just want to give you the biggest hug. And I know that you've got a long journey ahead of you with time. So I just think that, you showing up the way you do, and even saying yes to this podcast in this time, I was like, I don't know if she's going to want to talk right now. But you are so strong, and your strength is definitely contagious. So keep doing that and keep showing up the way you do. Big love.
Thank you so much. And as you said, it is, and I'm so sorry for your loss as well. It's shit. That's the only thing you can say is it's shit. You have no words. And
it's the worst.
Sometimes, it's hard because I'm always someone, I like to see the silver lining and everything. But when you're grieving, and I'm sure you would feel like this, when people are like, he's always with you, blah, blah, blah. And it's yeah, okay. But it's also can't we just say, can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've said the C-bomb on this podcast, so go nuts. Okay.
So you just want to say, I think you just got to go up to someone and be like, it fucking sucks. It's shit. Yeah. That's all you can say. And you're allowed to be angry. And you know how they say that there's stages of grief?
Absolutely. It is a cycle. Yeah.
You can go through all of them in one day. I know I do. In the morning I wake up and I'm numb. I still haven't really got to the acceptance part, but I just go through different phases all the time. This week I'm a bit more numb to it, which is what I prefer. Yeah. But then the other night I was just absolutely just sobbing my heart out. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. And I always say now, because what I was saying before was I don't ever stop. And like you said, putting it out there, there's so much hustle culture. And for me, as someone who talks about organisation and I sell planners and all the things, I always do hope that, when people see me and my stories, they can see I'm literally a hot mess. And the reason I make planners is because I am a hot mess and I have no sense of time.
Yep. Yeah. Full disclaimer. But you try.
Honestly.
Honestly. Yeah. I love it. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that, no one's got it perfect or right. And even, the queen of planners fit to show up and be so vulnerable the way you are and say, look, sometimes life does not go to plan, and that's okay. That's the biggest green light for everyone to give it a red hot crack. So full credit to you. But speaking of planners, we will change the pace a little bit, pardon the pun, of the chat because I want to talk about the success of Steph Pase Planners. Was it 2019 you launched your first year of planners?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that happening
Was.
and just going and starting out in your garage. That didn't last very long, did it?
No, I'm so bad at that stuff. It's a whole other world, hey. Because I still remember the moment I decided to make planners because I've always loved planners.
Yeah.
Even in high school, I used to get all the little sticky notes and the highlighters. I'm still my writing is terrible. I don't know how I sell stationery, but she's just writing over here.
Love it.
But I remember when I was sitting with my cousins on the lounge, and I think it would have been the Christmas of 2018. And I said to them, I turned to them, I said, what do you guys reckon? I had a couple of wines by this point. And I said, what do you guys reckon? Because I'd just been thinking about it, but I had no idea where I would even start. But I was like, what do you guys reckon if I made a planner? And they were like, I think that's awesome. And then, because it takes over a year to make.
I bet.
And even just finding all the right connections, and had to get a graphic designer because obviously I'm not a graphic designer. But yeah, and I was like, yeah, I'll just pack on the weekends in the garage. It'll just be my little side thing, just because a little passion project. I didn't do it to make money or this and that. Obviously I wanted to break even or whatever, but it was just more I really want to make a really good planner because everything out there is not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense.
And then
wow, and then for it to grow as quickly as you did, because you do cover everything in those planners and it's awesome and they're beautiful, but then just to see the growth in the last 2 years of your team and then your space, it's insane. And then actually the range of planners as well, definitely filling those gaps and even looking after the teachers now I see, and then the men in our lives who need to keep organised as well. It's just huge. Have you just do you just step back and go, holy moly, I did that, we did that?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not the best at being really being present with my achievements. It's always something that I'm not good at, which is weird. But yeah, there's times. I remember the first warehouse I got, it was probably quarter the size of the one we're in now, and I just hired my first staff member, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing this. And now I've got a team of 12, and most of them are mums, so they work casually and stuff.
Amazing.
And it's just we have the best culture. I shared on my Instagram stories yesterday, we had this whole day, it was supposed to be a lunch, but we ended up doing a whole day of Christmas stuff. We're doing stupid games, made gingerbread house, and it's so cool. And now Ryan's also he's winding down his building business to work with me and just be more present. And it's just so amazing. And that was one thing that Dad was always so proud of, is how it just originated from nothing, just this mum showing up, breastfeeding her baby, sharing her life, and then it turned into this. And it's just, it makes me grateful. And I'm also so grateful for my team, because when I was obviously going through the loss, for the first time in my life, I actually stepped out of the business for a little bit, which I never thought I could do, but it was actually such a blessing, because now I have a much, much better balance that I never thought I'd be able to get.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's a credit to you, to be able to do that, honestly. It's no mean feat. So yeah, it's incredible to watch. And knowing that, Mr. Pase is joining the team, that's awesome. Yeah, I love watching your journey. And you guys are building the house. That's another thing to be just oh my gosh, it's just dreamy. Just the whole, is it the Pace House is the Instagram? Is yeah. And your plans and your style for it, or has that just been an incredible ride to do with him?
Yeah, it's so good. Because the house we're in now, Ryan and I built that, and I shared the journey on Instagram a couple of years ago. But where we live, there's not much larger blocks, because we're actually on quite a small block.
Yeah.
And this a couple of years ago, and the bigger block opened up, literally it's across the road. There's a creek and then there's the block. And
amazing.
we're so we just did it, and it was actually really good price back then. And we just had to sit on it for a few years because we couldn't afford to build anything. And now it's we're building this amazing home that I couldn't have done without the support of my customers and Steph Pase planners and stuff. And now Ryan gets to essentially be a stay-at-home dad if he wants, or I'm like, you just do whatever you want to do, and we get to film everything. And it's just so fun. It is a good dynamic, because he's more of the logical thinker, and I'm more the creative, crazy one that you have to reel back in all the time.
It's a good balance. It's a good balance. But to see him so supportive of you and obviously be a beautiful man to be able to handle that energy from you, like it would be, I see it, you know, in a couple of the couples I follow, and I look at that and I'm like, that is the goal, and that is a beautiful man to be able to do that, and that's when it works. It's that dynamic where it's like when they're so proud for you to shine in your light, and then you both get to enjoy the ride together. It's just stunning. So it's, I can't wait to watch the build of the house. I'm going to be living vicariously through you, but by my little apartment on the beach.
Come stay with us.
I'm there. I will hold you to that.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I promise not to bring any Smirnoff Blacks.
We'll
stick to rosés.
Yes.
So on the topic of success and planning, we need you to show us your ways, the Queen. We would love some tips on goals and intention setting for the new year. For me personally, I've always been word of the year kind of gal. Like I've had resilience was my 2020 word, not knowing what I was about to go through. And then I had focus. And I can't even tell you what this last year's word was. I think it's been a blur. And it's obviously going great if I can't remember the word. But yeah, I honestly love the whole word of the year kind of vibe. But for me, I would love some more goals on. I love goals, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure, I know this is a buzzword at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I have ADHD and I can't focus. Like that being my word of last year, I realized I was like, I really struggle to focus. But at the same time get heaps done, but not really what I need to get done. So literally give us your tips. Show us your ways.
It's funny you say that because talking of ADHD, I actually got diagnosed with that when I was a kid, which is super rare.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't go on medication or anything, but mum was like, yeah, you've got this. Like we went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, because mum was very on top of all that stuff. Sorry, that was just like a side note. So yes, it's actually funny but not funny, but my word for this year was balance, and I definitely wasn't going to achieve that, but then like after everything that happened, it literally made me halt my whole life, and then I was like, okay, what do I want my life to look like? Because for someone like, you know, I saw my dad work his whole life and he was always looking forward to retirement, and then it just like, and at his funeral, I managed to get up and speak, and that was the hardest thing ever. But it was just like I said, you know, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and it really truly made me like sit down, and I literally wrote down like, how do I want my work, my home life, my week to be like. So I do really feel like I have achieved that word for this year, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
But I think goals, New Year's resolutions, all that stuff can be super overwhelming. And for someone, let's just use fitness as an example. For me, I've been on, you know, both ends of the spectrum with fitness. In my early 20s, I literally put on like 20 kilos in a year just from, I ate noodle box for breakfast. It was so bad.
Also delicious. Also delicious.
So good.
Please sponsor us.
But I think the problem with me is that I used to, not that the weight was a problem, it was the health issues that came along with the weight. And I was very unfit. And I used to always I think a lot of us, we tend to set these huge, big goals, but then we don't actually plan on how the hell you're going to achieve it. So you're like, say your goal is to, I want to run half a marathon. You can't just like, you know, like everyone talks about manifestation and that. You can't just like manifest that you magically could run that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need to, and I feel like too, a lot of people tend to do the all or nothing mentality at the start of each year. Like they're like, absolutely no chocolate, just going to eat broccoli, like talking about fitness again, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And there's no, like, the thing with, for example, fitness again is, and being healthy, it's like, if you can't sustain that way of living, you shouldn't start it in the first place, because you're gonna fall off the bandwagon and you're gonna beat yourself up about it. You know what I mean? So it's all about, for me, I like to set smaller goals. So even like for every 3 months or every 6 months, but then I actually sit down and go, okay, for me to get to running a half marathon, what do I have to do in my daily habits to get me there? So I think it's really like breaking it down into your daily routine, because that's how you're actually going to achieve your goals. It's not just manifesting that it's going to happen. So say if you want to start a new business. Okay, let's sit down and be like, okay, so what can I even do for half an hour a day that will get me to start my new business? It could be research. It could be listening to business podcasts. It could be journaling ideas. Like, you know what I mean?
I love it.
So I think instead of setting these huge, big goals and then just wishing it's going to happen, which it's not because you're not acting on it, cut it down into smaller segments. So first of all, you're not going to get overwhelmed and then not start in the first place. Because I know it's overwhelming if you set this huge goal. Just sit it down and then be like, okay, what's the habits I can do each day that will get me there?
Yeah, just those small actions and just reverse engineering from the end point and coming back and breaking it down. I love that, day by day. So good. And you have goal specific planners too, hey, where it's all about intent, daily goals and steps in place. Hey, that's amazing. Yep.
Yeah, and I also think, speaking of goals, in my planners, I also have monthly reflection, because I think each month you'd be so shocked at how much you grow. It won't be in all areas of your life. It could be in something small as, taking more time for you, or, you really wanted to start reading and then you're like, oh, I actually read a book or even half a book, and you don't actually reflect on your progress. So at the end of each month in my planners, I have these reflections, and it's so, so good for you to sit down and be like, what did I do good this month? Where's my mindset at now where it was compared to the beginning of the month?
Yeah.
Because I think, we go through life and we only really celebrate our huge achievements or huge milestones, but we should be achieving the smaller ones too, because that, again, like we're talking, it adds up to the big ones.
Yeah. Yep, so true. I love the reflection side of things. And we had Brielle Holmes, who's a coach, on in episode 8, and she was all about the setting the intentions and the goals, but definitely taking the time to reflect and see where your life's at now, and if there's anything that can be taken away before you add on the pressures of goals. And I think that's such a valid point. It's so easy to expect more or pivot, but dealing with any blockages as they are is a huge part of goal setting, right?
Yeah, huge. And it's just so good to be able to be like, go me, I did the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. All right. Well, on that, we're going to go to our first segment, Love Letters. Love Letters. We had a question box up on the gram, and the first question that came through for you, and it is a little bit heavy, but we're going to go there. It says, I'm so sorry about the loss of your dad. My dad was recently diagnosed with aggressive cancer. What is the best thing I can do for my mum to support her?
Yeah, it's so rough. And, seeing you going through it yourself, and firstly to whoever sent this message in, I'm sending you all my love and strength. It is something that nothing can prepare you for. And I know, I guess everyone's different, but for me, I think just every day, literally every day, I would just reassure my mum, saying I'm always here. And especially when you're the spouse of someone who's ill, you're literally they're the full-time carer usually, unless they're in hospital. And I just would check in with her every day, I'd bring a coffee, just something simple like that, and being like, do you want to go have lunch? And for me, that was something I definitely felt like I neglected for so long, because running my business and stuff, you get so caught up, and it's especially with someone who's caring for someone who's sick, sometimes it's just good for them to be able to tap out. So say if they're at home caring for them, be like, do you want me to come around? I can work from home. You go out, go to the beach, go get coffee, or just offering to bring them groceries and stuff like that. But I think that even when you feel like it's overkill, but just continuously reminding them that you're there.
Yeah. No
task too small, you're happy to do whatever it is. And also just stepping in for them to get some air if that's the case, or if they're in hospital. Whenever mum was just so run down and she got the guilt for not visiting dad, I was like, of course I'll we'd both take turns and stuff like that. And just, being a sounding board for medical decisions and stuff like that, because that's a huge thing. And there's a lot of doubt that go through the family's mind when we're faced with these huge decisions that can literally affect obviously their life or how long they've got left. So just being that sounding board for them, and just doing even just the little things like washing and stuff.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Showing up big and small. Next question, it is, love you. What is your love language?
Oh, so mine is acts of service.
Yeah, right.
So
yep.
Yeah. And
so you love you love acts of service to you, or is that how you show love?
I do both. Yeah. So I like to do make good meals and all that type of thing,
Yeah.
which I actually haven't been doing lately because grief is another thing. So I've just been heating shit up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love acts of service towards me, and I also love I think it's words of affirmation. Is that the other one?
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah. So they're my two ones. Just like I love when, especially if Ryan can see I'm very anxious, having a really anxious day, and he just goes and does like a load of washing, which he's great, he's amazing. But just like doing little things and like checking in with me, like, is there anything I can do to help? Like, just that shows me so much.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were like, gifts are lovely and that, but I'm not a gift person. Like, I don't really. I'm like,
Yeah.
but if it helps me with the washing, then I'm cheering.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. And what are his?
Oh, he's his physical touch, of course, as a male. Men. I don't remember what his second one is, but I know his first one's physical touch.
Yeah, amazing. Go Ryan. Love your style. What would you describe your fashion style, and where do you love to shop?
Oh, goodness. I've never been asked to describe my style. I guess I would say relaxed. I love more relaxed. Obviously, I live in activewear as well, so I'm literally always in activewear. But I don't know, like, what would you say, like, beachy, relaxed?
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't say.
What would you say? Help me.
You're honestly, like, I feel like you have. I love that you can dress up. You love your dresses, and then and then you're definitely the comfort queen, like, but you rock it well.
Yes.
Like, you always look put together,
Love
but somehow still in a tracksuit. It's like, how?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I always feel like you're in color too.
Yeah,
apart from today.
and I used to live in blush. Everyone would remember. I was always in blush, and now I'm a bit more adventurous. Like, I'm going for different colors, brighter colors. And today, like, usually at the gym, I always would just wear like black leggings, but today I wore teal shorts. So go me. Proud of myself.
It's the new hair. Do you find that with the new hair, you're finding the different tones in your wardrobe whenever? Yeah.
It's really fun. I'm really loving it. Today I feel like I look like the Little Mermaid with my green shorts and my red hair. But
so good. So good.
And I shop at Billy J.
Yes, yeah, right. You do too. Yep. Love. Flashback faves. We're going to go into our segment called Flashback Faves. I feel like you are a bit of a nostalgia queen. I've seen you post a few 90s references. So I would love to know a moment in time or a book or a story or a song that inner child Steph still loves and you just remember vividly that you'd love to share with the listeners today.
Well, I have to say the Harry Potter books. Literally, I've read them 8 times. Obsessed with Harry Potter. I remember I think it was these 7 or 8, all the girls were like in their supre, and I literally just wear this Hedwig green top I had with like Hedwig on the front. That's just me. I just did not care, and I had like Harry Potter stickers all over my books and stuff. But for me too, it was a really good comfort, growing up with a sibling with Down syndrome and autism. I did feel like I really, like, when we were younger we would play, but as we got older, like, obviously it's different and it's a bit harder. So I kind of a lot of the time did feel like an only child. So books and Harry and Hermione and Ron really helped, just fill that time for me. And I just think it's just the best. And unfortunately, Ryan just thinks Harry Potter sucks. I don't even know how we were married at this point.
Gosh,
but anyway.
Deal breaker. No way. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I can relate. I just love that it's transcended with time as well, because I do remember vividly reading it multiple times as a kid, and to my little sister, and we'd I'd read it out aloud to her and we'd like piss ourselves laughing, and my mum would hear us from our bedroom, and like just vivid memories of that. But then Jace was the same, my eldest, he's 15 now, and he was the same, read the whole series 8 times over. Rafi's not so much into it yet, but I think he will. He's 7 at the moment, but I can't just like placing it in his room for the meantime. But he's my little softie, so he gets scared easy. So I think that he'll approach it with caution. But I love that. I love that you're a Harry Potter fan. That's awesome. It says a lot. This is why we do this segment.
We're the best people, Harry Potter fans.
Yes, unite. Words to live your week by. So the final segment we have is words to live your week by. And I know that through your planners you do have quotes jotted through, which is beautiful. But do you have a favourite quote that you'd love to share today?
Yes. This one always I actually shared it, I think, the other day, and it's a bad moment, not a bad morning. It's a bad morning, not a bad day.
Amazing. So true. It is. It's
because it's like, yeah, you have like one bad moment and you're like, oh, my whole day's ruined, blah, blah. And then it's also like, and then that quote actually goes on to say, it's a bad day, not a bad life.
Yep. Breaking it down. I love it. So true. And especially this time of year, such an apt reminder that not to sweat. It can get overwhelming. There's a lot going on between all the events and the kid, just the pressure that there's Elf on the Shelf and there's like, and is it Christmas yet?
Kids have so much on. I swear, when we went to school, we did not have all these. It's great. Look, it's amazing. But I'm like, I feel like I forget things every day at the moment. I'm like, you guys have so many activities. I can't keep up.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, Steph. Tis the season to be jolly. I'm so jolly.
SOS.
R.I.P. me. But honestly, it's been such a joy getting to know you more. I learned things about you today, which I love. So, thank you for taking the time at this crazy time of year to chat. And I just love you, adore you, and giving you the biggest hug for all the reasons. But thank you for coming on today.
Oh, thank you too. It was so good to chat with you. It was just good to be able to chat to you again.
Yeah.
When we saw each other. When was it? A few months ago. But it was so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Steph. Have a beautiful day. Bye. And there we go. Thank you for listening. If you loved this week's episode, please leave a review or provide a 5-star rating. It really helps us let us know that you're loving the show. And of course, any DMs and comments and shares, we really appreciate as well. All the feedback has been amazing. Thank you so much. You can stay up to date with us and follow our socials, Big Love Energy Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. But we'll pop all the social handles in the show notes below. Thanks for listening, lovers. I can't wait to get into next week's episode. We'll chat then. Bye.
I don't want just anybody. Let me treat you like somebody. Try to dive on a Rari. This forever, we ain't stopping.